Section 8.5 is multiplying and dividing real numbers. So again, we're not just dealing with positive numbers here, we're dealing with both positive and negative numbers here. And so right here in this little piece, I have the rules for multiplying integers or multiplying real numbers. So a positive number times another positive number is still positive. A positive number times a negative number is negative. A negative number times a positive number is negative. And a negative number times another negative number is positive. So let's take a look at the first problem that we have here. We're just going to multiply. Okay, so negative 6 times a negative 2 can leave me with a positive 12. 8 times a negative 5 would give me a negative 40. Negative 7 times positive 5, negative 35. All right, let me scroll down and we'll try a few more here. Okay, so the next one is 3 times negative 6 times negative 5. Well, I know that if I multiply negative 6 times negative 5, I'm going to get a positive 30. And 3 times 30 is just going to leave me with 90. Now, if you look at the next one, it's negative 4 times 0 times 8 times negative 3. The fact that here we're multiplying by 0, tells me that my overall answer will also be 0. And in the next problem that I have here, we have negative 2 times 1 times negative 3 times negative 2. So I'm going to just deal with my numbers 2 at a time. Negative 2 times positive 1 is a negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is a positive 6. And negative 2 times 6 is a negative 12. The next problem, if you notice, the numbers are very similar. Here I have negative 2 times negative 1, that's positive 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is a positive 6. And so my answer here is 12. So just something that we can notice, let me kind of clean some of this up here. If you look at my first problem that we did, we had 1, 2, 3. We had 3 negatives. Now 3 is an odd number. When I'm multiplying, if I'm multiplying an odd number of negatives, my answer is going to be negative. Now, if you look at the problem underneath before, I had 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had 4 negative numbers. If I'm multiplying an even number of negative numbers, like 4, then my answer here is going to be positive. Okay, so the next problems we have here say to evaluate. And if you notice the first two problems, negative 5 squared, negative 3 squared, those problems have parentheses. So when I'm evaluating here, since my number is in parentheses, I'm going to write down my number, negative 5. I write it down twice, and I'm writing it in parentheses. So negative 5 times another negative 5 is a positive 25. Negative 3 squared in parentheses. I'm going to write negative 3, and another negative 3 is a positive 9. Now, if you notice the next problems here, again, I don't have parentheses. So if I don't have parentheses, the negative is only written down once, and it's the number 7 that's written down twice. And so a negative 7 times a positive 7 would give me a negative 49. The same thing is going to happen here. The negative is only written once. I write the number 2 twice. And so negative 2 times positive 2 is a negative 4. So if you notice, if my numbers are inside parentheses, then I write them with parentheses. If my numbers do not have parentheses, then I don't write them with parentheses. So let's try the next couple that we have here. Okay, so negative 5 to the third power. So again, I'm going to write down my number, negative 5, negative 5, negative 5. That's given me a negative 125. The next one does not have parentheses, so I only write down the negative once, but I write my number 2 down 3 times. So negative 2 times 2 times 2 is a negative 8. All right. The next problem is just asking me to evaluate. And so we'll go ahead and do the same thing here. AB, so remember AB means A times B. So I'm going to write negative 3 times 5, and that's going to give me a negative 15. All right. So over here I now have the rules for dividing integers, and I want you to notice that the rules for dividing integers are practically the same as they are for multiplying integers. So a positive times a positive is still positive. A positive times a negative is negative. A negative times a positive is negative, and a negative times a negative is positive. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and divide here. So negative 24 divided by positive 3 is a negative 8. Negative 72 divided by a negative 8 is a positive 9. 8 divided by a negative 3, negative 6. Let me scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so 0 divided by 5, if you remember, this is 0. If you all remember 7 divided by 0, this is when we have undefined. Okay, and then again here for the next problem it says, let's evaluate x over y when x equals negative 8 and y equals negative 4. So again, I'm going to write negative 8 divided by a negative 4 is a positive 2. Okay, continuing with 8.5, we're multiplying and dividing still. Now we have some fractions. So the first thing I want you to notice is that I have a negative times another negative. Well, I already know that's going to give me a positive. So I'm not even going to worry about my negative sign right now. And I know that 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. And I can't reduce that fraction, so I won't. Similarly, here in the next problem, again, the same thing. I have a negative times another negative. I know that's going to be positive, so 1 times 1 is 1. 8 times 3 is 24. Okay, in the next problem here, I have negative 3/4 squared in parentheses. So if you remember, I'm going to write negative 3 over 4 times another negative 3 over 4. So again, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. 4 times 4 is 16. All right, we'll do this one the same way. So negative 2 over 7 times another negative 2 over 7 is going to leave me with a positive 4 over 49. Now, the next two problems that I have here are dividing fractions. So if you remember, my first fraction stays the same, 6 over 7. We change the division sign to a multiplication, and then we need to take the reciprocal, or we need to flip the second fraction. So that's going to become a negative 3 over 1. And we'll go ahead and multiply straight across. So that's going to give me a negative 18 over a positive 7. Again, I can't reduce that fraction, so I'll leave it alone. And finally, the last problem here. Remember, my first fraction stays the same, 4 over 5. This becomes now times negative 2 over positive 1. We need to do the reciprocal. Again, I'll multiply straight across. That gives me a negative 8 over a positive 5.